In medieval Europe, the Vikings were to be feared, especially in coastal areas. The Vikings would board their long ships to head across the waters to raid villages in the northern coast of Europe, including Ireland. By the start of the 11th century, the Vikings were at their strongest and controlled a lot of northern Europe. Vikings would raid coastal areas by boat and claim land as their own. Viking ships were skillfully made. They were fast and had the strength to survive ocean crossing while also being able to sail in very shallow waters. This allowed Vikings to jump out of their ships near the shore in shallow waters. It helped them to get closer to their attack more quickly. An important town on the southern coast of Ireland was KINSALE. The position of KINSALE was an easy approach from the sea, sheltered the harbour, means it was always important defence of Ireland. In 1601, KINSALE was the site of a siege by England Navy under Queen Elizabeth I. Irish troops were defeated in victory, which gained England complete control of Ireland. Charles Fort was built in KINSALE Harbour in the 1600s. The fort was named after King Charles II of England. It cost £80,000 to build. The fort was built in a star design. With the star shape, there was no way you can approach the wall without being seen. Nothing was built around the fort, so there was a clear view of the top of the harbour and the surrounding countryside, from the tops of the walls and the watchtower. This particular model of the Star Fort was built all around the world. In fact, the Pentagon, which is the headquarters of the United States Department of Defense, is built on this five-sided fort model. Charles Fort has a seawall that's up to 6 meters thick. This means that the walls were nearly as wide as this classroom. Along these thick walls are bastions. Bastions are angular walls that stick out of the fort and designed to provide additional protection. There are also low zigzag walls outside the front gate. They work like trenches. If the fort is under attack from the land, the gates could not be opened. Attackers would be focusing their attack on the main gate. Soldiers would be sent out through sally ports, small openings in the walls, and run along these zigzag sides to fight their attackers on the outside of the fort. There is also a moat around the fort. It was not for crocodiles. Most castles and forts have moats because they were dug like a ditch around the fort during the castle's construction. At Charles Fort, you can see the grass growing up between the outer and inner walls. These walls were made like a dirt sandwich and would stand up to heavy cannon fire from the harbor. The walls act like a shock absorber. The fort is very big and functions like a small town. In addition to soldiers, the fort would have been like a home to many of the people that were needed to keep a small town running. There was a gunpowder store, also known as the powder magazine. It was where all the ammunition for the fort was stored. This way, a very strong building that was meant to protect all the gunpowder and weapons from the enemies. It would have been one of the most important buildings in the fort. There was also a soldier barracks, which were the living quarters for the defending forces. The British officers who were in charge of the fort may had their family living with them, also in a larger building. The lowest of the soldiers may had only a corner in a crowded room with no comfort or privacy. And remember, modern-day bathrooms and flush toilets has not been invented yet. These buildings were made of stone, and many could only support small windows, which meant the rooms were often dark and cold as the thick walls could never be totally warmed by the sun. There are also office buildings where business would take place, records would be kept, letters would be written, and doctors' offices would be there too. There were also kitchens and storage buildings for food. There is also a cooperage where woodworking and barrel making would have taken place. And most important, these stone structures that would catch and store rainwater for everyone inside the fort. On the opposite side of the harbor, a small fort, James's Fort, was built. These two forts made the harbor of KINSALE harder to attack. No naval force has ever attempted to attack KINSALE Harbor after the two forts were built and armed. With 96 cannons at Charles Fort and another 46 cannons at James's Fort, an attack from sea would have been suicidal. KINSALE is one of Ireland's most historic locations. For many centuries, it has been an important part in Ireland's defense. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.